So again, this is how the rubrics started. We really wanted a way to monitor progress. And so we selected what performance skills we typically look at as OTs, and we were all from different school districts, and we all had different ways of assessing. So it kind of makes it a little bit broader based in terms of what we decided to put in this. So these were the identified areas that we wrote rubrics for. We used postural control, sensory modulation, which is probably the one least developed, ocular motor, which I will probably have time for today, object manipulation, looking at hand skills, looking at color tracing and cutting, design copying, and then handwriting. Sort of a ladder of how we were all tending to look at our handwriting kids or our motor kids. So that's how we decided to go through them. So initial evaluations, we know when we do them, we're getting scores that are used to identify their present level of function, what concerns that they have that we have to write on the IEP, why we're recommending OT services, and then establishing our goals. And that we usually use standardized assessment tools. But when we're doing a reevaluation or a progress report, we can't use those standardized tools. One, because they don't really measure progress in quarters, and really you can only use them annually, most of them. So if we took our goals, is there a way we could address our goals through a rubric and monitor progress that way and have it predetermined, so that the idea was that we would have a folder in the beginning of the year with our rubrics and even our worksheets pre-copied. Then what we were going to do, and I'm in the process of trying to formulate, is have a half sheet like this that would just staple on top of it. So you would do a baseline in September, and then when November comes, you clip on and you do your notes here. So over here, we're going to copy this. It's a little hard to format right now. So that you would just have the rubric that you have a goal about. So you might not be using all these rubrics. Hopefully you are not using all these rubrics. But you're only using the ones that relate to the goals that you set based on your evaluations in those areas. So we tried to make it follow your evaluation, your goals, and then develop the rubric that would go along with that. So that was our thinking. It's still, you can see, a lot of paper and a lot of coordination of how you're going to do all that data collection and then data analysis to make your progress reports. So these are not based on standardized tools. They're not using, but they are based on standardized tools. Karen was showing me all of these assessments, and it's like we used all of these assessments to develop some of the criteria and those descriptive behaviors. I was so excited to see that the Quick Neurological has been revamped for the third time, because this was a really important tool when we were doing the postural control aspects, as well as some of the fine motor, especially this. How do you document changes in thumb finger touching? What does that mean? So this, I think, is really exciting that this is updated in here. So again, it is very time consuming no matter what we do with it. And we're trying to make it, we tried to put it all on one page. So that's why the constant reformatting. We had all the cues on one side of the page and then the rubric on the other, and the paper was ridiculous and not necessary. So everything we've tried. So any suggestions on format, again, gladly received. All right, again, it's criteria, reference, and it's definitely a work in progress. What we did is we started reviewing the literature, the evaluations, all kinds of, you could see from my binder, like we used a lot of different references to come up with what criteria was describing what we thought was a behavior that indicated function, so that's 3s and 4s, and what were the behaviors we thought were, we would identify as being in need of services. And then we would be able to track them. And you can see what we tried to do here too, is to make it a grid that in quarter 1 it would be here, quarter 2, 3, so you could kind of track them as moving up or not. So that would be a visual aid to tracking progress. Again, we looked at K and 1, and it was really interesting to go back for me, after all these years developmentally, to find the information, because we have these kids 5 and 6, 6 and 7. You look at 6, and it's like between both grades. And then the variability of a 6-year-old was wide. So it was like, well, how are we going to discriminate between K and 1 and a 6 and 7, and I mean a 5 and a 6 and a 6 and a 7? It really was an overwhelming way of trying. So some of the pages are the same, because we really couldn't discriminate that well based on our observations. The way you would have to discriminate is on a standardized test. So when you look at the standardized tests, like the BOT or the MFUN, they cluster things. They call it fine motor precision is color, cut, trace, and fold. Is all those skills in that one item, that one test. Then design copying of shapes is called fine motor integration there. Manual dexterity is the coins and things like that. And you have to add up all of those to come up with a norm, age level. So we couldn't do that, but we used a lot of that information. But you'll see there's a range of variability. And the same thing's true on the M Fun, how she divided visual motor and fine motor based on those tasks. So that was a challenge.